You are listening to Girls in Low Places.
We're like the country music podcast that your mum banned you from listening to.
Let's go, you freak.
Who let us backstage, honestly?
Girls in Low Places. On our very first episode, we looked at each other and said, I would love to get this guest on the podcast. But it seemed so far-fetched and so beyond what could really happen in life that we laughed it off. We thought they couldn't be possible. But here we are a year later, and I am so excited and slightly dumbfounded to say, Bob Harris, welcome to Girls in Low Places.
Thank you very much.
I just want to make sure everybody knows that Bob is not under duress.
No, no.
We have something that we have to give you because we believe you truly are the king of country music. We are going to crown you, Bob. You don't have to wear this very long.
Ta-da!
Actually really suits you. Indeed. Royalty.
You look
is here with
brilliant.
us.
I don't know whether I feel like a king or a pope. This is really nice. It's a gold crown. Oh
I
my
know.
god! Look at all the inlays.
I know. And also I was quite impressed it came with sort of the foam padding. So it's got
Yes.
longevity of wear.
It doesn't actually have quite the weight, I don't think, does it, of a coronation?
Well,
No, I
we'll see what we can do next.
Yeah, our budget is low on
Oh,
Girls
is
in
it?
Low
Oh.
Places. We couldn't get the crown jewels.
Yeah.
I'll come back this time next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
So last night,
Yes.
I was with Carly.
Yes.
And she told me, I said, oh, I'm interviewing Bob Harris tomorrow. And she said, make sure you go say hi to Bill.
Well, every time I play her on my country show, I always do a dedication from Bill to Chloe.
Oh, my goodness. Because you're getting her name wrong.
Yes, because afterwards, Flo, my daughter Flo, had told me that she was really upset,
Yeah.
really quite beside herself that she got my name wrong. I know how it happened in her head because there's this guy, Bill Anderson.
She said Whispering Bill in
That's
Nashville.
right. That's right. So she just kind of morphed us together
Yeah.
in her
It
head.
happens.
It happens.
Yeah.
But of course, I mean, it was so funny because she said, he's here tonight. This guy has been so helpful. Well, he's in the audience like, Bill, where are you?
Did you
Where is-"
shout, no, it's Bob? Because I'm
No,
sure.
people in the audience.
People in the
started
audience
shouting.
did, yeah, because we were
When
at
they
the front.
began to realise,
Yeah.
they were shouting, it's Bob.
They weren't whispering Bob Harris. They were shouting Bob
That's
Harris.
right. So I sent her a text. I texted her saying, dearest Chloe, don't worry about the name. Everything's okay, Bill.
Oh, brilliant.
That is so
She was such a good sport about it last night. I mean, we're seeing her properly perform tonight
yeah.
and we're very, very excited. And I feel like she was one of the ones that I feel you have championed from the start that has really sort of brought into our generation of listening to country has been Carly Pearce, Casey Musgraves we'll get onto later.
Well, do you know the story of how I got to hear her and what exactly happened?
No,
No,
tell us.
Because this is why I think one of the reasons that we've got such a close bond, she and I. So I'd arrived in Nashville, ready for the Americanas, and I'm driving out from the airport onto the interstate to go into Nashville, center of Nashville. And I switched the radio on. I always switched on WSIX just to find out what the mainstream stuff was, how it sounded on the radio, see if there's anything that I am listening to that would be good for my show. And every little thing was playing. It had just started. And I was absolutely knocked out by it. I got to the hotel, and the first thing I did, literally, was I called Mark Hagan, my producer,
Yes.
and said, I've heard this song on WSIX. It's by this artist, Carly Pearce. At this moment, nobody has heard her at all, as far as I could tell. When we come out for the CMAs in November, because the Americanas were in September, can we organise to have Carly in to do a session when we come back? And in November, the week that she came into the studio, Every Little Thing had gone to number one.
Brilliant.
So-
you
and-
had the eye and the
and
ear
then-
to spot them, Bob.
And then she told us her story, which was so touching and really quite amazing. The resilience that she showed through so many years of setbacks and rejections, and just at the point where she was about to give up, she did a little showcase that she hated in the office somewhere in front of about 4 or 5 guys who, as far as she could tell, was sitting there chewing gum and looking bored out of their brains, you know. She got back to her apartment and cried. She started packing everything. She phoned her mother. She said, I'm going back to Kentucky. Yeah, I'm coming home. And then she heard a ding of an email on her system. And she opened it up, and it was from one of these guys who said, you have just played a song that's going to change your life. And every little thing, then he put it forward for SiriusXM, who started playing it, and it all began to grow from there.
And then you heard it.
And then I heard it, and yeah.
And here we are talking about it.
Yeah.
You've always been such a champion of new and kind of upcoming artists. Is there one specific way that you kind of look for those artists, or is there something you're always kind of like looking for, or do you just only know it when you hear it?
It's just instinctive, honestly. It really is. I don't have a method as such, although I must say now, obviously, social media is so important. What I do is if somebody's posting little snippets and I just like the sound of them, I follow through on the link to go into their account, just read up about them. And then assuming that that track is released, I then go into iTunes and listen to it to see if it'd be right for the show. So then, you know, because all the barriers of releases in America or waiting for a release there before you put it out here, or, you know, put the album out or a single from, all of that's gone now.
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful kind of free-for-all.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I was talking to Dirk Bentley about this on the show a couple of weeks ago, because he's still from the era that the CD was still king. So you would plan.
We remember it.
Yes.
We're not that young, Bob.
Well, I go back to vinyl. So
You were doing this back on the old grey whistle test back in the 70s. Now, I didn't actually know. Do you know what an old grey whistle test actually means? Because I didn't actually know this before I looked it up. So it's basically a song that's played to you, and if you can whistle it
back,
then it's going to be a hit.
Yeah, because it was always all about the hook.
Yeah.
You know, the chorus, the hook. And literally, you know, there used to be the songwriting factories in New York, the Brill Building. And so people like Carole King and Neil Sedaka and Jerry Goffin would be working 9 to 5 days.
Yeah.
You know, and then at the end of the week, they'd play the songs that they thought were most likely to become hits. And the ones that the people working in the offices around them had the nickname the Old Greys. So if you played them the song and they could hum or whistle it after hearing it only once,
that's amazing.
that was that was a hit. So it passed the Old Grey whistle test, and that's it. So it was a legitimate phrase used in the music industry at the time. We televisualized it. So, and that format is a great format. It really, really works.
Bring it back, Bob.
Yes.
Bring it
Please.
We need that now.
Yeah.
If you could have a dinner party
Right.
with 4 musicians,
Wow.
who would it be and why?
Whoa. John Lennon.
Okay, yeah. I thought you might say
Absolutely,
that.
100%.
Yeah.
I would probably actually say Casey Musgraves.
Yes,
I
we
love
her.
Casey.
We love her.
I adore her. You know, I'm the voice of her answer machine.
Sorry,
Yes.
you're joking.
I am.
Right, tell me more about this immediately. So wait, did you go over to hers and record it?
She put her phone in front of me and said, this was backstage at CMAs
Oh my god.
about 5 or 6 years ago. And
And what did you say?
well, she said, that's what I said.
It's Casey Musgraves, but
What
leave a
would you like me to
message.
say? She said, don't mention my name.
Oh.
She said, don't mention my name. Sound very BBC. And just say, I'm afraid the hello caller, you know, I'm afraid the phone is unattended at the moment, but if you could leave a message, then that would be great, or words to that effect. And so then when I saw her last time, when she came over last year, with the same day as Brandy Carlisle, actually.
Yes, I remember that.
She came into the studio and we met up. It's always lovely when I see Casey because, you know, I really was there right at the very beginning with Casey. When I heard the sort of white label of the first album, Same Trailer, Different Park, I just loved it so much.
Yeah.
When she was in London last time, she said, I changed phone recently
Oh no.
and
gosh.
lost your message.
No.
Would you be okay to do another one?
Oh my gosh, that is brilliant.
I said, yeah. And the
Your
thing
side hustle is like
I-
Katie Musgrave's
yes.
voice
Answer
message.
yes. She said, one of the reasons I want you to do it is because my mum kept phoning it just to hear your voice.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh,
Isn't that
bless
bad?
her. That is so good.
yeah. So
I mean,
when she won the
glorious.
Grammy, a couple of weeks ago, I texted her just to say, I'm so proud of you,
She
which,
Yes.
deserves
which
that.
I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
And she came straight back, literally, with three hearts.
Yeah.
I love being in touch with Casey.
She's
you know.
class.
She is
Yeah.
She's a
so-
class.
she is.
Yeah.
So you've got John Lennon.
I've got
Casey
John Lennon.
Musgraves.
Casey Musgraves, yes.
Who else?
Well,
who are the
let's-
last two spots?
Okay. I'm gonna actually go for someone probably a bit unexpected, but there's a guy called Joe Brown. Now, Joe was a hit maker in the early 60s,
Mhm.
but Joe, as a kind of 17, 18-year-old in the late 50s, was a really fantastic guitarist. And he was the guitarist that all the touring bands or touring artists used to hire to accompany them on their tours. Let's say Johnny Cash
Mhm.
would come over to do tour dates here in the UK, but he wouldn't have any of his backing musicians with him.
Right.
So Joe would go out on the road with Johnny
Johnny
Cash,
Cash.
or Gene Vincent.
Wow.
So his stories
His
would be
stories. I have sat with Joe, and I mean the only thing about inviting Joe to the dinner is I've heard a lot of the stories before, but the other guests won't have done.
Yeah,
so
Exactly.
You
So,
know.
you know, when you're doing
Yeah.
things in the kitchen, he can, you know,
Yes, he
tell,
can.
tell them.
yeah.
Okay, last
So
one.
last
Who've you
one.
got?
Well, it's got to be female, hasn't it? Oh my goodness.
You've got a nice mix in there so far, though.
You're not bringing Yoko along?
Maybe not.
Maybe.
No. Oh,
We're cutting that out, Katie.
no. It's bad about Yoko though, because I mean, if you trusted John, you've got to go with his choice here.
Yes, yeah,
and-
I
and
agree.
his-
I agree. He must have seen.
He must have seen, something in her that I'm going to go June Carter Cash.
Oh,
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Mm.
Brilliant
amazing.
choice.
Because I think she'll be a portal into
Yes.
an amazing world going right back to the country music Big Bang.
Who are you going to get to perform out of those four? One can perform after dinner. I
Ooh.
already think I'm going to break my own rule here
Oh,
and say I would just have to see June and Casey do something
a
together.
duet.
Yes.
I would just have to.
Yes.
I couldn't starve Casey off that. I wouldn't be able to watch that to go, no, I need to do this.
Could they not be a quartet, actually? when you
Yeah, I
think-
think
Yeah,
that's
That's
probably
it.
the best. If you had to do your country music super band, who are your top three?
Oh my goodness. This needs,
Go all Simon Cowell, Louis Walsh about it. Put them together like One Direction.
obviously, Chris Stapleton
Yes.
Yeah.
has
yeah.
to be the singer, doesn't
Yes.
he? Keith Urban, the guitarist.
Yes, we love Keith.
Yeah. And oh gosh, there's a drummer called Ruben Blades. So he would be the drummer driving it all.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd go and see that band.
I
I'd
would.
be a groupie.
Yes.
Tell you that.
I would too.
Speaking about Chris Stapleton, I wanted to ask you this because it's come out today that he has put in a formal complaint to the Grammys about the Beyonce album and about her winning it. We are interrupting this broadcast to announce that since this episode was recorded, this statement from Chris Stapleton has been proven as fake news. So this was all alleged, but we thought we would still hear what Bob had to say on this topic, so just forgive us, Gilpers. Forgive us.
I'm really pro this album. I really am. I think it's. I mean, what's wrong with Beyonce making a country album? I mean, I was in company in Nashville last year, and the Beyonce album came up, and there was a voice somewhere deep in the room that I heard that went, "She doesn't belong here."
But now we don't. That's
You know.
no.
And I thought, that what is wrong with Beyonce recording a country album? She's
Nothing.
from Texas.
Yep.
It was part of her roots and her heritage.
Mhm.
It's taken country music onto conversational platforms
Yep.
right across media.
Yeah.
All, it's huge what
Yeah.
she's done
Yeah.
to open up country music to a wider public.
Yeah.
So if it's okay for Post Malone
Why is it
to
not
come
okay?
in,
I think that,
let's say,
That is a
Good
very
point.
good point.
Mm.
We didn't love the album. I love Beyonce. I love her coming into country music, but it wasn't an album for me. But to open the conversation and to bring this whole thing to a much wider audience, that's what we love to see. And I want to see more of it. I want Beyonce to do another country album.
yes,
I want to see more. I want to get more into this. I mean, there's been so many great artists that are featured, some of which are coming to C2C who've been on that album.
well, the other thing about that, you've absolutely hit one of the nails right on the head,
Okay, good.
because
Breathe.
yeah, because Rhiannon Giddens would
Right.
not be on that album
Exactly.
if she felt that this was not authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rhiannon is one of the most amazing and truly rooted artists of today.
Mm.
Brittany Spencer is on
Yeah.
that record
Love Brittany
too.
Spencer.
She's brilliant.
Yeah.
But Rhiannon's the one for me, and she's on Texas Hold'em
Yeah.
and contributes brilliantly to it. The vibe and the rhythm and that she adds to the record is incredible.
Yeah.
So for me, Rhiannon Giddens is also the kind of gateway into that record. If it's okay with Rhiannon, it's okay with me. So who are we then to say, well, okay, let's go back and say, well, has Post Malone got any right to be working in country music? Was Charlie Pride okay? Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's
Where does it
It's a
it
very
opened,
strange precedent
Yeah.
to set.
Yeah.
and I mean the
yeah.
one thing, the way that I'll link it back to myself, kind of thing, is the fact that
Bring it back to you, Bob.
yes, it's been much more about me keeping an open mind
Yeah.
to the way country is developing through the years,
Yeah.
because it's changed immeasurably since I first arrived in the heyday of George Strait and Alan Jackson and the very conservative
Mm.
feeling that existed within country music at that time.
Yeah.
It's changed massively, and I think for the good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Black artists are enriching country music.
Absolutely.
They
Yeah.
really, really
Absolutely.
are.
They really are.
So why pick out Beyonce
Yeah.
for this negativity?
Yeah.
I
it's a-
find that even in the UK scene, there can be a lot of divisiveness of the old fans who've loved country music from the start, not really enjoying, artists like Morgan Wallen or more pop, more hip hop
Yeah.
based artists. I mean, there is something that's going around that's called the pink cowboy hat brigade that people talk of the new country fans that we don't want. I think I am the captain of the pink cowboy hat brigade. But I just think, what do you think about this sort of dividedness in the UK fans? Shouldn't we all just be enjoying music together if you're new?
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when I took over the country show in '99,
Yeah.
I took over from David Allen. And if you can imagine this now, there were 2 country shows at that point on Radio 2.
Right.
Nick Barraclough was doing New Country on a Wednesday evening,
Mhm.
and David Allen had been one of the protectionists
Of the old.
of the old
Mm.
school.
So are we blaming them?
on Leslie Douglas, who became controller of Radio 2, she felt that she wanted to move the country show away from this very protectionist atmosphere. She said to me, just go for it. The gloves are off. Just go for it. I'd done an interview with Emmylou Harris, who just put out a Graham Parsons tribute album. I went to her house.
Oh my
Oh.
gosh! Wow.
Because Emmy and I have known each other for years and years. And so Dave Shannon, who was the producer of the program at that time, thought, we'll start with Emmy and Gretchen Peters. And we had a week in Nashville
Oh my gosh.
where we were recording
dream.
sessions.
My dad
with-
would have passed out by
Oh.
this point. Emmy Lewis is number 1.
We actually had a call with Ozzy's dad before you
He's
came
such a big
in.
fan.
Oh, really?
Where he gave us some good tips and pointers of saying, you need to ask Bob this.
He's
You
been
need
a
to.
huge fan of
Yeah.
yours all the way
Right.
through.
Oh, wow.
And yeah.
He did ask us to respect his privacy, but I've blown that.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I was playing Lucinda Williams and then the Jayhawks and Sunvolt and discovering Brad Paisley had just released his first record.
Yeah.
Sarah Evans,
I
where it
love
was
Sarah
when we were in
Evans.
Nashville, No Place That Far went to #1 and she came in to do a session So we were, me and Dave, championing all these new names. And it took probably 6 to 8 weeks before the first horror-struck correspondence started coming in.
Of people being frustrated.
Of people going, oh, so this is it, is it? You know, oh my God, you know. So, and it just built up over a period of about 3 or 4 weeks. And David, we're just on the verge of emails, but it was mostly letters. And we had a sack full of them.
Oh my God, that is so good.
What are you doing? What have you done to our show?
You're being trolled
yes,
by the
yes,
postman.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So I said to Dave, I'm gonna take this on air. We can't
Just get
ignore
some
it.
gasoline, light the matchbox.
Yeah, we cannot ignore this.
Yeah.
And it had been such a jump from David Allen to me. If you notice in country music people, David still tends to be sitting there with his pen going. He was so cross with me at the time, and I think he still is. But so I started getting these letters from people, and I said to Dave, right, this week we're just going to clear space in the middle of the show. I'm going to devote some lengthy time to discussing this. I picked off a couple of letters. There was one in particular that was so angry with me and had written out a playlist of 10 essential artists that the show should be concentrating on. God. Well, as I said on air, as I read the letter, I said, 6 of them are dead. You know, but I know how much you love Jim Reeves, and we love Jim Reeves too. But by not playing Jim Reeves every week, I'm opening up that gap for a new artist that I hope will generate in you the excitement you felt when you first heard Jim Reeves in the 1960s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I can do that to people through this program, then that's what I'm trying to do.
And that you did.
And it was amazing because just like that, everything changed.
Yeah.
Do you think that was a key time just for country music, or do you just think it's because the format was different and you were bringing in new people? Because at that time you were playing Nickel Creek, Nico Case, Casey Chambers, all of those people that for me were a big gateway into that new wave of country music.
Yeah.
And do you feel that was just that timing, or was that just the way that the program was moving?
I think Leslie's instinct of thinking that I would be the right person for this moment in time
Definitely
proved to be correct, because, I was there when Keith Urban did his first proper showcase in Nashville in 2001.
Yeah.
You could sense that there was this new generation, this new energy coming through. And one of the other things that was very, very important at the time, so there's a huge nostalgia now for the 90s.
Yeah. 90s country.
It's
a whole genre
and quite right
itself.
too. There's so many great records. But what had happened is country music had got very kind of produced.
Yeah.
And there was a formula to it now. And I remember going into one of the studios in Nashville. I mean, this blew my mind. Where the studio was between albums, right? So the studio was dark in that sense, didn't have any artists in it. The producer had left the desk with the faders exactly the way they were from the last album, because the same set of backing musicians would be in for the next album, and the only variation would be the lead singer coming in to record on top. So it was very formula. So I arrived at just when all this was kind of
You were at the
happening.
heart of it. You were at the helm of the storm.
I
Bob.
was. It was, and it was a great place to be.
Yeah.
But it shows that there's always a storm in music. I think there's
Yeah.
always this space of, what are the kids listening to? I don't want to listen to that rubbish. And then that sort of happens a lot. It's the same narrative. It's just a different bunch of characters. And I think that it's good to hear you say that, because those artists that we now look back on and think, well, they're icons, we don't even question it.
Yes.
Back then we're getting kickback.
Yes.
And I think that's why we all have to embrace the Morgans, the Beyonce albums. We have to listen to all of it and go, what do we think? And it is subjective.
Yeah.
Well, also, in terms of where we are here in the UK, how exposed we are now to the music of new artists who come over to actually play here.
Yeah.
The country show has been such a bedrock in terms of just pushing the door ajar enough for people to come in on the back of my support.
Yes. Do you
Um,
accept bribes?
Well,
Katie's going to start singing
I-
in a second.
I-
Please stop.
if it's a chocolate chip cookie,
I did get you a
then
chocolate
yes.
and a Mars ice cream, Bob. Don't forget that.
And a Mars.
I'm going to have a number one single next week.
So, country to country this year. Are you excited? Who
I
are you
am.
looking forward to seeing?
Yes,
I mean,
who are you?
you've been at every country to country so far, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, I host the main stage.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
we're
there I
already there.
am.
We're actually hosting a stage this year, Bob.
Are you?
I know, don't look so shocked.
I know this is great. Where?
In all bar one.
All bar one, the saloon stage with Holler. We're collaborating with
Come
them.
and see
Oh,
us.
that's amazing. Yes.
Have you got any tips for us?
In terms of
Presenting, hosting, podcasting, broadcast?
just be yourself.
Oh, God, don't tell me that, Bob.
I tell her the opposite every single day.
Be less you.
Yeah.
Yes, no, be more you.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes,
Thank you, Bob.
yes.
I'm going to put that on my tombstone.
There just used to be nothing in the country music scene. Like live music, you
Yeah.
get some more of that underground stuff, more of the UK stuff, but US country bands did not come here.
I know.
There was no one to see
I was
ever.
in this. I was in this lane, completely by myself.
Yeah.
Going, come on, guys, come on, this is
You were
really
the
good.
only person.
You
Yes.
monopolised the
Yes,
market, Bob.
We thank you for that.
Key change was CTC.
Yeah.
You
It
think that was the
really,
moment?
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then we put out something with Lady A,
Oh, right, yeah.
and it was a snippet of an interview
Mhm.
that I'd done with them when Need You Now was the
Oh,
number. So 10
yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
And during the
Is that 10 years? I know.
more, it's a
Oh.
bit longer now.
Don't say that,
But
Bob.
during the interview, I was saying to them how wonderful that they were here in the UK, because we are now starting
Mhm.
to get artists coming over to tour.
Yeah.
And it hadn't happened
It's
before.
mad, isn't it? That was only 10
I,
years
I said,
years
and
ago.
it was worse the effect of, I can't remember the exact detail, but I said, and you'll never, Rascal Flatts are going to be here in 3 months' time. Now, that was kind of the way it was then.
Mhm.
And you compare that with the way things are now, and the way that people really do see Britain, the UK, as a viable, I mean, you don't make a lot of money touring the UK, but then who does? If you're going to bring over a band and you're going to, but as Scott Borchetta always used to say to Taylor Swift, if you want to rule the world, you have to get out there and play it. And it's true.
What good advice.
Yeah, and it's absolutely true. But she does, doesn't she?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but she
she
does
does,
do it.
though.
Yeah.
There we go.
exactly.
Once C2C came into the mix, but I mean, talking about protectionism, talking about, Beyonce. So, because I walked out onto the stage for the very, very first C2C. It was 2 days, but what I call kind of the old crusties
Mhm.
who sit there going, Beyonce shouldn't be making country music,
I mean, we talk
Um,
about them all the time.
yeah. There they all were.
There they were.
They're
They're
they
always
were.
always
there.
there. They're always shouting at Katie.
They're
Yes.
always shouting at me for
Yes.
doing something.
Yes. So they just about tolerated Brad Paisley. He took them to the edge of their,
Yeah.
acceptance. But the Zac Brown band really, really, really did it. I was standing on the side of the stage
Furious.
where I saw this mass exit of people just leaving the auditorium.
goodness.
I doubt that any one of them was younger than about 55 years old. So they'd gone. Following year, it was Luke Bryan, I think Florida Georgia Line.
I went that year.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
amazing.
And
9
wasn't it-
years ago now.
Wasn't it
10?
incredible? The
Unbelievable.
energy was
It was
just
one of the best gigs I've ever been to. Genuinely.
It was packed.
It was
and this
packed.
new
Yeah.
Yeah.
audience had arrived.
It was so
with
good.
all those empty seats were now filled
Oh.
with people who were so enthusiastic, and it just ramped everything up in
Yeah.
such a big way.
Yeah.
And I felt sort of privileged to be able to watch all this from the stage, because I look out over the audience, I can see who's there and
Mm.
how many people are there. And it's now got to this incredible stage, hasn't it? C2C.
All the
where
outside bit that they developed, and it just seems to be
It's
getting bigger
wonderful.
and bigger and bigger and better every single year.
Yeah.
We absolutely love it. We're just worried because we're presenting, we're not going to be able to see anyone. We're like, we've got to time it.
You see, these are the sacrifices
Sacrifices you make.
Yeah.
That's what happens now.
Oh,
now,
God, Bob.
now that you're big stars.
Calm down.
There's going to be a few sound bites from this episode that I'm just going to replay in
your
my
head
mind. It's going
now.
to go to my head. You're going to see me at a C2C with like security,
Yeah.
a rider,
Yeah, an
sunglasses.
entourage. Yes.
An entourage.
We'll see your entourage about 2 minutes before we see you. Yeah, yeah,
And they'll all be wearing pink cowboy hats.
yes.
The brigade is here.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Good lineup this year, though.
Yeah,
really.
It
good
is.
lineup. Yeah, really
Yeah.
excited.
Who are
Yeah.
you most excited
Lainey.
to see?
Yeah.
Yeah, always.
Amazing.
We're Laney girls, aren't
Yeah.
we?
She's got it in her,
Yeah.
hasn't she?
Yes.
really
She
does.
absolutely lives it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. no,
Can't
she's
wait to see
brilliant.
her.
Mm.
She's on my. We're not doing even if anyone else wants an interview at that point. No, I'm seeing Lainey. We've
Mm.
got to see them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's Cody Johnson. Cody,
Yeah.
I'm
So-
sorry.
Sorry, Cody.
I don't have time.
Yeah.
Right, I've got some quick fire questions
Oh.
here.
Go on
So
then.
sort of
Yeah.
fun questions.
Okay.
Have you ever had a fangirl moment when you've lost it while you were interviewing someone?
Actually, honestly, no.
You've never been overcome.
No, because I just feel so comfortable in this world. You
Great,
take me
yeah.
out and put me, I don't know, with Eric Cantona, let's say,
Right. Then it's different.
Then it would be-
or Sir Alex Ferguson, then things would be
It'd be a
very,
travelling
very,
mess.
very, very different.
So good.
Yeah. So, but in terms of musicians,
Mm.
honestly, no. I've always felt quite comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a peer. You know, your peers.
Am I?
Yeah. Are you comfortable now? Are you sure you're not
Yeah.
overcome by seeing
Yeah.
me?
No, I'm not so sure now. Just-
Honestly, I tell you, completely gone to her head.
yeah. No.
So humble,
I mean,
this one.
yes, I know. I'm in the presence of greatness. Yeah.
What are you like?
Speaking of, who has been the biggest diva you've ever interviewed? We can bleep this out if you don't want to actually.
I
drop
was
it.
witness to the most amazing bit of divaishness I've ever seen.
Is it Katie?
It was 10 minutes ago when.
But there's not been anyone.
Two
that's...
words:
Uh-huh.
Mariah Carey.
Of course. Has to be.
So,
It's been confirmed. The rumours are true.
Yeah.
1996, and I was doing some programs for VH1, which is an offshoot of MTV.
Yeah.
And they had this wonderful building in Camden Town with a sort of forecourt to it, and I got in about 10 o'clock in the morning. Actually, Mark Hagan used to work there as well.
Right. Yeah.
So Mark and I were working on programs and stuff, and we got word that Mariah Carey was arriving and was coming in to do an interview with MTV.
Mhm.
And her Winnebago pulled up in the front of the building,
Brilliant.
right? So then we heard that because there was no sighting of Mariah at
Uh-huh.
all. An hour and a half goes by and there's still no sighting.
So she's in the Winnebago.
She's in the Winnebago. we assume she's in
Yeah.
the Winnebago, and word goes out that she'd only come into the building after somebody had gone out to get puppies. She wanted puppies. She wanted 11 of them in the Winnebago with her.
11,
11.
not 10.
No, it was
11.
specific. It was 11. And so people from
This is unbelievable. Everyone.
how are we legally with
Jaws
this
on.
now?
Yeah, like, quick call.
Yeah, yes. So
Oh
you better
my
rinse this
goodness.
through.
Yeah.
But it's a true story. So
Wow.
so people from Sony or whatever her label was at the time, rushing off in all directions to local pet shops and
Oh,
no.
yeah,
my
to try and
God.
find puppies.
Was it any
for her.
breed? She just wanted puppies.
Well, as far as I'm
That's
not.
unbelievable.
I wasn't privy to the minutiae of these demands, but that was so people arrive with puppies. We're now 2.5, 3 hours later. She's been parked out there. It's now lunchtime, and she's still nowhere to be seen. But puppies
being going in, but no
are-
Mariah's coming out.
arriving.
Unbelievable.
So, but she's going to come in now. She'll come in, but
Right.
only on one condition. And that's that everybody within the building goes outside of the building. And it had a sort of gallery balcony sort of thing that overlooked the sort of front parking lot. Everybody had to come out from the building and stand outside and applaud her into the building. And so,
Please tell me you slow clapped.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, Mark and I didn't.
I was going to
No.
say,
Yeah.
You could
But
say that's
everybody did.
Feels
Unbelievable.
peak
Yeah.
90s
And
that
so-
as well, doesn't
So
it?
Yeah.
she swept in with the puppy under her arm.
So she brought the puppy.
She bought one of them.
For God's sake.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry we forgot your puppies.
Yeah, we
today.
did bring the
Yes.
11 puppies.
I don't know how I'm sitting here. I'm shocked, actually.
Get out and you win a
Yes.
bagel. It's unbelievable. Well, I mean, do you think
Unbelievable.
she's
That's such a
doing
good
it?
Story,
Do you
though.
think she's doing it for a? She's sitting there going, "Do you know what? I'm going to try and see if they're going to do
They're
this.
gonna do
Let's
this.
see if they get me 11 puppies."
Yeah.
Do you
Well,
think it's
I bet
what
they-
is it?
I don't know.
What's the psychology behind that?
It's
I
brilliant,
don't-
though. I respect it.
You
I
respect
respect it. 11 puppies. In
I-
fact,
if you can do it.
yeah, why
I
not?
don't. I respect all of it apart
No,
from the wasting people's time
Mm.
and the lateness. I don't like the lateness. I
No.
hate it when an artist comes on late when they're performing for lots of people who've paid for them. That's one of my biggest pet
Oh,
peeves. I
good
hate
job
that.
you weren't there in the 70s.
Oh, did
Oh,
they come on late all the
really?
time?
Oh,
that
it
a
was
thing?
you had to go on stage an hour and a half late. You know, it was just de
I'm
rigueur.
exhausted. I need to go
And-
to bed.
And then
at
there
night.
weren't any curfews. So, I don't know,
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin, let's say, which
Yeah.
are on stage at 8:30, you wouldn't expect really to see them till about 10 past 10.
Wow.
And then they
I would
play
not
till like 1
survive.
o'clock in the morning.
Nah, I'd have been fine in the 70s.
I would not.
I'd have been on so many drugs, it wouldn't have
Yeah,
mattered.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I could have
exactly.
been 6 in the
That's
morning.
it.
I mean, oh, it was brilliant, 70s. If you weren't doing what you're doing, what would you be doing?
Well, I wouldn't want to do anything else.
No.
Mm.
But playing records for people and seeing people's reaction when you're playing them a lovely piece of music and see the look on their faces. You know, I realized that this is where I wanted to go when I played a group of my friends' Heartbeat by Buddy Holly. It was a great double-sided single. It had a song called Well Rides on the Other Side. And I was playing Heartbeat on my little Dansette record player to my friends, and they loved it. And I'm thinking, wow, the power of music, you know.
Mm.
I was like 11 or something, and 10. And I thought, this is where I want to be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
is playing music for people and giving them pleasure.
If your life was an album, what would the title be?
Oh my God.
That's such a
What would
difficult
Bob's
question.
album be called?
In my life.
Yeah, of your life. If you were to make an album, say
Yes.
now, retrospectively on,
Yes.
on your life, what would it be titled?
In my life.
In My Life.
Yeah, John Lennon's song.
Brilliant.
The Beatles, yeah.
Full
Oh,
circle
that's-
moment.
Full circle
I
moment,
love it.
yes.
I love it.
And it's such a wonderful track anyway, so.
Yeah, but Bob, it's got to be your original
Yeah,
music.
well, I know. but-
Otherwise, you're really going to get infringed on copyright.
No, I plagiarize it.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Maybe you'd actually release like a heavy metal album. You never know. Like
Yeah.
maybe it would just be a
Shock us
completely
all.
or a
Yes.
reggae album.
Yeah. We work a little bit with your daughter Flo, who also works in country music. I wondered, you are whispering Bob Harris, but at home with your family, are you ever shouting Bob Harris if you're annoyed?
If he's
You
done something wrong.
Should ask Flo.
I should ask her. Do you
Yeah.
ever worry that if you're caught shouting in public, it would ruin your brand?
Yes.
There's no longer whispering.
And it's funny how that came about because, as you can tell, it doesn't necessarily apply these days. But when I first started on the Old Great Whistle Test, I mean, I've always been radio. That's been my thing. I never had ambition particularly to be on TV. So when Whistle Test came along, it really, I didn't go to it. It came to me. So my idea was to kind of take radio onto television, if that meant, you know, the intimacy and the one-to-one. Plus, when I first started doing the show, I was absolutely terrified by it all.
It's very different.
Yeah.
Ozzy is constantly begging me to not do video podcasts. Can we just do the audio? Because
Yes.
it's so horrible watching yourself back on video.
Yes. Well, I'd been a viewer of the first series.
Girls in Low Places. No, I'm kidding. And what do you think?
Yes. Well, I like the pink microphone mufflers.
There we
They're
go,
really-
Bob approved.
Yes.
Brilliant.
So,
But TV was a bit of a jump for you.
Well, I'd watched the first series and I'd absolutely loved it. I was fine about it all until the opening titles began to run. And there I was sitting in the studio, and I suddenly imagined me, my family, my mum and dad, all my friends, everybody in the world that I knew watching.
Oh.
And when I turned to the camera, so Mick Watts, who was journalist with Melody Maker at the time, about 2 or 3 programs in, and I still have not in any way whatsoever even begun to conquer my nerves at this point, did a review of the show and how it was working and everything else. And he referred to me as Whispering Bob.
Because you were a little bit...
Yeah. And it just stuck. It just stuck ever since.
I always
that's
thought
so
it was like that you would
interesting.
sort of like whisper into the ear of us, you know, you sort of be like, you should like this song.
Yes.
I thought it was
Well, it
that.
sort of
It kind of
was.
does, yeah.
But
Yeah.
he was the man who
It worked.
actually,
Who actually
came up
pinned
with
it.
it, yeah.
And once that had happened, it just rolled with and
Yeah.
I've never challenged it. I've always thought that it was a great thing because, you know, let's face it, there must be a few trillion Bobs in the world. but a Whispering Bob, a bit
Only
rarer.
one.
Yes. So,
My final question.
yes.
Will you record my voicemail?
Of course.
Go ahead, Bob. Do whatever you want. Freelance.
Well,
Freestyle it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do what Casey said to do.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's got to be fairly anonymous.
Yeah.
You see, because then it adds to the importance of,
Okay. of my divaship.
yeah.
Brilliant. I can't
Yeah.
wait.
No, that's it. So,
Okay.
so what should I say then? Hello, this is Bob Harris here, and this is Girls in Low Places. And I'm answering this phone in the hope that you will leave a message, and the person whose phone it is will call you back as soon as possible.
Very good.
Is that good? Is that all
I
right?
don't think I'm never going to I'm never going to pick up ever again to
No.
anyone just so they can hear
Yeah,
that every
exactly.
single time. The
Yes.
fact that me and Casey Musgrove share the
Yes.
same voicemail now
Yes.
is just
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Oh my god.
Oh, if we ever get to interview Casey, that's going to be the first thing I
Yes.
show her.
First topic
thing.
of
First thing.
conversation.
We've got to make
yeah.
it happen. I don't know
Yeah.
how, but we've got to make that happen
Yeah.
now. Oh, Bob, this has been amazing.
Oh, well, I've
Thank
loved
you
it. Thank
so
you.
much for coming. We've had
We're
such a good
honoured.
time. We could go on for hours.
Yeah, I
but
could never
we will-
leave.
we'll
Well,
let
let's
you
not.
go.
We'll just carry
Thank you again.
Thank
Thanks
you
very
so much.
much.
And we
Really
can't wait to see you at
appreciate
C2C.
Absolutely.
We'll have to,
Yes.
See you there.
give it.
See
You get,
everyone then.
yeah, and give us more presenting tips. Don't- pretend you know us when you see us. Don't be like, oh God, it's those girls.
I wasn't really planning to do that.
No, exactly. Unless we supply you 11 puppies. then-
Yes.
Yeah, 11 puppies only. This has been Girls in Low Places with Bob Harris. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, everywhere. Just be a girl in a low place with us because
I'm Bob Harris, and I am a girl in a low place.